This is Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom, words on leadership, goal setting, productivity, and a whole lot more. I trust today that you will consider this like your vitamin or supplement for your mind and heart. And wherever you receive podcasts from, would you please subscribe to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom? Leave a rating and a brief written review. And again, you can find Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom anywhere that you receive podcasts: iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, Podbean, and on it goes. I'm glad that you're here today, and what we're going to talk about today is how do you decide? How do you make a decision? Maybe we ought to get even a little more basic than that. Are you a person who makes decisions? Now, you can't make decisions based on fear. I happen to meet in the position that I hold today with a lot of governing boards who have been, it seems, for much time, been putting off making decisions, deciding their future, deciding their direction. And I think people buy into a couple of false narratives. I think that not making a decision in many people's mind is not having to make a decision. And if you go back and remember your days in Intro to Logic class, if you took that in high school or college, indecision or not making a decision is in fact a decision. Doing nothing is a decision. There are times that doing nothing is a good decision, but oftentimes it may not appear so today, and maybe not tomorrow, and maybe not next week, but it is a non-decision decision that can have catastrophically damaging results. As a matter of fact, do not buy into the idea that doing nothing is neutral. You are either progressing or you're regressing. That is true for individuals, and that is true for organizations. For whatever reason, be it the changing climate and culture in which we live, especially in the Western world, things aren't like they were in your parents' or grandparents' days. Matter of fact, I think you can even say things aren't like they were for your older brother as they are today. But we have to get away from being paralyzed by fear, which almost always leads to a sense of anxiety that will result in inaction and inactivity, and the organization will quickly go backward and even completely regress. If you're the leader or on the leadership team, one of the reasons you have been placed where you are today, my friend, is to help navigate these choppy and difficult waters that we find ourselves in and help give direction and move things forward. But many people are so fearful they won't make a decision. Now, if you are a faith-filled person, you really should not be living a fear-based life, but a faith-based life. If you're a person who has average intelligence, you have a supportive team around you, you have some folks who have some experience and they know what they are doing, they have done some things, then quit huddling down in fear. Get together, pray, research, work, make the best decision you can with the information you have, knowing that oftentimes there'll be mistakes, oftentimes you'll have to recalibrate, oftentimes you'll have to make a mid-course correction. But if you do nothing, you will need more than mid-course corrections. You will need complete and absolute overhauls. And I'm afraid in many organizations, at least in my part of the world, the Western world, our organizations, not-for-profits, are in such a bad state of repair that it takes right now forward action. Get a clear view of what it is you're supposed to be doing, but don't allow fear to just sort of dampen everything that you're trying to do and color every decision that you're seeking to make. Then there are others, they're sort of a Siamese twin to that, in that if they're either not paralyzed by fear, they live with a certain fear of, well, what may happen if we make this decision and try to move the organization? Or if we make this decision and no one's ever tried it before, what if we fail? What if we don't succeed? What if this all completely and totally falls apart? As if you buy into this very wrong notion, and that is, the only danger is in making decisions, answering questions, or trying to take a step forward, as if it is the total safe alternative is to stay as you are, do nothing, attempt nothing, hunker down, put your head down. My friend, danger is all around us. I'm even going to say, in some sense of the word, it is more dangerous to stay neutral and to absolutely do nothing. So here's what I want you to think about, whether it's you personally, your family, your church, your not-for-profit, your business. When you're in the midst of needing to make some decisions, ask yourself this question first: why? Why do we need to make a decision? Now, that may seem really simplistic to you, but you're going to have to answer that question when people ask. And don't just assume that it's obvious to everyone. It's not even obvious to everyone in your family. It may not even be obvious to everyone who works the same place where you work. So just give yourself to this question: why must we make this change? Why are we making this decision? Why are we going this direction? This is not asked in the negative. It is asked to help you clarify and to be able to understand and explain it to anyone who asks you. Why are you making this particular decision? Not in a defensive way, but just to say, I know that you may be wondering why we are doing this, and then just give the bullet points. This is why. Oftentimes, when I'm making major decisions, I call them experiments, because it's okay for an experiment to fail. But if you report, God told me, most people's theology and mindset cannot get around the concept that God may be wrong. So guess who they're going to assign the blame to? And since you and I have never been to tomorrow yet, we don't know exactly even if the best laid plan is going to work out. So I highly recommend trying it and calling it an experiment. You can say, with the best that we know today, with our best research, putting the best minds together, this seems to be the reasonable next step to take. Let's experiment and see what happens. Therefore, if it's an experiment, you can make the mid-course correction. You can tweak it. You can even back up and start over. You can even say the famous quote, "We've learned one way, it's not being done." Begin to celebrate momentum and movement in your organization. Too many of our organizations, I am afraid, are rewarding nothing. I feel like they are saying, we're going to take it safe and do nothing. That's not an option most of the time. So, would you please give the reason why, make a decision, call it an experiment if you need to, so that you can make the adjustments along the way. One of the things that happens when we are in the throes of making a decision is, rightfully so, you should seek input. You should seek input from your team. You should seek input from people who perhaps somewhere in your industry or in the field of endeavor you're involved with who have made similar kinds of changes. I would pick their brains. I would ask them. I would not only ask them how they did it, I would also ask them, what did you encounter that you didn't expect? What was a surprise? What would you do differently if you had to do it over again? If you had all things being equal, would you have gone that direction What should I pay attention? I want you to seek out advice, seek out information, do the research. That's all absolutely essential and important. But don't base your decision on the advice of people who have never done anything in life. And also don't base all of your decision-making advice on people who have no stake in it. If you listen to your team, they are also have some skin in the game. And so I would weight it toward them. But it amazes me that some people will go to and receive financial advice from people who are bankrupt. People will talk to overweight people about diets. Go to people who have been where you are and have now transitioned to something else. Those are the kinds of people I would seek advice on. But now there is a point where you're going to have to put the brakes on, because you can research something forever, especially with the explosion of the internet search engine. You can search and search and can almost become paralyzed by the over information. Here is when you're making a decision is one of the critical factors you must keep in mind. Don't become so bogged down in the details that you begin to overthink. And when you begin to overthink, you'll begin to doubt yourself and doubt your decisions. I'm all for thinking. I'm all for asking for help. I'm all for research. But I'm also for the next thing is put a time limit on all of that. You can research something forever, as I've already stated. Put a time limit. I'm going to ask people. I'm going to seek advice. I'm going to research, strategize, study this. But by this date certain, we're going to go ahead with the best information we have. Our team is going to talk about it, think through all of the implications that we can be aware of, knowing that there'll be some things we'll never think of no matter how long we think. But one of the ways to defeat overthinking till you're paralyzed into inaction is to set a time limit. Again, seek opinions of others. I weight things toward my team because my team is going to be in the trenches with me and I need to listen to them. I try to listen to people who have some similar experience to what we're trying to accomplish. And then there's one thing that I always pay attention to when I'm in the midst of this process, and that is, am I feeling conflicted by this decision? Now, I'm talking about something entirely different than being anxious or nervous or the fear of having to make a decision. Oftentimes, I feel like some of the reasons that I'm conflicted when I'm about to make a decision is a way of my internal clock, God, whatever you want to say, experience, saying to me, maybe there's something missing that you need to look at. Not too long ago, I was in a really conflicted situation over a decision I was about to make. So conflicted by it that one evening I got out all of the background material, I looked at everything, and I began to say, okay, let's walk through this again. And in the calm coolness of that event, by looking through that, I found the reason that I was feeling conflicted, even though I didn't know at the time. I was missing some key data points that I really had not put into the equation. So don't just rush through any feeling of confliction, but you'll know the difference, or you need to learn the difference between feelings of conflicted and just general anxiety about making a decision. My friend, it is important to make a decision because in the end, the only thing that most people regret are the things they didn't do, the things they knew they should have done but failed to do. The decisions they waited on until it was the optimum and right time, and unfortunately for them, the day didn't come. So when you're making a decision, ask yourself why. Why are we making this decision? Who have we talked to? Who have we listened to? Have we researched? Set a timeline so that you can fight against this overthinking and this paralysis of analysis. Seek the opinion not just of others, seek the opinion of your team and people who've done the kinds of things you're trying to do. Listen to whether you are conflicted. If you're going ahead with something major, it's okay to call it an experiment. Then you can tweak it, rework it, but at least you're moving. Get to the point where doing nothing is no longer an option. You've been listening to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom. Words on leadership, goal setting, productivity, and a whole lot more. I trust that you'll consider this like a vitamin or a supplement for your mind and heart. And wherever you receive podcasts from, would you please subscribe to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom and leave a brief rating and review? It would be very helpful. Remember, my leadership friend, wherever you are today, you are doing better than you think you are. You really are. And until next time, this is Dr. Ron saying, have a great and blessed day.